So first thing, I create a file in Illustrator to be cut with the graphics on the bottom, cut lines on the top. Um, Save it as a PDF. Okay, I always import as a vector, and if I can remember to ungroup everything, I do. Sometimes I forget and everything ends up grouped, but I just hit Command Shift G when it opens, and I can ungroup everything. A lot of the commands are actually the same as Illustrator. Okay, so it did do something a little funny here. For some reason, save the image on top of the die lines, but that's pretty easily remedied in the layers menu. All I have to do is just where my find where my die lines were and just shift the order. Okay, so now my die lines and my image are on a separate layer, but for some reason Silhouette Studio, your top layer is on the bottom and your bottom layer is on the top, but just kind of clunky, something you have to get used to. Anyway, you'll notice that my pieces are in the lower left-hand corner. I actually have to drag them into the upper left-hand corner, so I can just manually select everything, or I can hit Command A using my arrow tool. Just move everything towards the upper left hand corner. Leave about an inch or so of space. So yeah, you'll notice. I think I remember to ungroup everything. It's actually is also important to get your layers separated. I'm just gonna choose my image file, and which is a polygon here, and move it into a separate layer, and then shift the order. Okay, so I want to be able to turn off the image file. So anyway, I use panels, select by color. I'm going to select my red, which I use to indicate score lines, and then I go to the top here and I change the line style all the way to this first dotted line, and just so I don't have to manually score, sometimes I just use those perforations, kind of a lazy way to fold things. But yeah, it works pretty well for doing things rough. So I'm gonna turn on my other layer. By the way, layers is under panels. It's the third from the bottom. Something I need to end up using a lot here. For some reason, the registration marks are actually under View. So I'm gonna view, make my registration marks visible, and then for style, I choose Type 1, which it's like the Cameo style registration marks, which actually work really well. For the dimensions, I put them all the way up. For thickness, I bump them all the way up, mostly just to make this square a little bigger so that the machine can read it a little more easily. If I zoom in here, you'll notice this mysterious 1 pixel line. It kind of fell within my the area of the crop marks, and could cause some problems. So I'm just gonna move everything a little bit away from that. And other than that, everything's pretty obstructed. I'd send this to the printer. By the way, these panels store in library, I never use. I just go back and forth between design and send. If I want to print this out, there's like a printer icon. I can just send to the printer, or file, print. And then once I have that printed, I load it into the cutter. Then I'm gonna go to the same send menu. Cardstock, plain. Always use cut. I actually never use auto blade. I have an adapter and I use Graphtec blades, which I find a little better. But even without, for cutting through like fairly thick things, I think ratchet ratchet blades is like the way to go. I do force. I think default is 20. Sometimes I'll bump it up to 21 or 22 if the paper's a little harder. I use between 65 and 80 pound cover stock for almost everything. If I go above 80, I'll do two passes, but between manually adjusting the blade and bumping the force up and down, and you can handle any card stock that you'd want to use pretty much. Turn off my graphics layer, so I'd turn off my image first. So this is what my cutting will look like. Just press send, and it should work. Sometimes it'll mess up, and you have to manually like use these arrows, or use arrows on the console to set to set the blade above the square. But usually the auto detect works pretty well. So that's about it. Hope this was useful, and if you have any comments or better way of doing things, just please leave a comment. Thank you.